I did want to share something with you that I just found. Look at your dad. First of all, these glasses.
I definitely have Joe's forehead.
So, Devin and I are connected by our fathers who have both now transitioned. My dad, Moselle Brown Jr., and Devin's big me, Joseph Deon McGhee, both who are now our internal guides. I'm so happy that we are able to connect in this next part of our lives, in this new part of our lives.
Same, same. You probably know very well, like losing a parent can be very isolating. And a lot of people don't understand what that feels like. So I'm definitely happy that even though we were essentially connected through them, not in life, but in death, I'm definitely happy that we are connected for sure.
So I wonder if you can take us back to 2018 and tell us why you built Deon Libra.
My dad had a massive heart attack on February 17th of 2018, and it killed him in his sleep. It was stress induced. I was at his house the night before, technically the day of, because I didn't leave his house until like after 1 a.m. I texted him when I got home around 2 a.m. He sent me, I think, 3 kissy face emojis back. And by the time I woke up the next morning around 11, the hospital was calling me. And I just knew I'm very in tune. My gut never lies to me. I answered the phone. I couldn't even like talk. So my fiance, well, no, she wasn't even my fiance at the time. She's my girlfriend at the time. She's my wife now. Took the phone from me. I put my feet on the ground, and in my head, I literally said, like, this is the day that my dad dies. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. A few months before he died, we were talking about how all of his Black Harvard Business School male classmates were dying of heart attacks in their 50s. And then a few months later, him. And so, you know, me being the nerd and the little researcher I am, I really needed to understand like the science behind what happened to my dad. I came across a sleep study where they studied Black people and white people sleeping. And what they concluded is that when Black people are sleeping, we are not truly at rest because our heart rate and our blood pressure does not drop to the rate of a normal sleeping human. And so like that one fact made a lot of the shit and a lot of the questions I had about what happened to daddy make sense for me. Like everything just clicked. I think there's a multitude of things that we as Black people have to deal with that in turn turn into stress. And we don't even realize like, oh shit, this is stress. And so the more I think about like my dad being a Black man born in 1963, you be tough, you do this, you do that so that you can survive and you can make it home and that you can be a leader and you can be the man of the house. And when I think about that, like the weight of that pressure, like what did that do to him in his 54 years of living?
I can think of memories I have of my mother and her beauty routine. You know, that's what wellness meant for me. But after my father passed, I learned quickly that, you know, no, this is a means of survival.
Yep.
And I mean, it's crucial for us. It's life or death. I love this term that you coined, stress less. It's this idea that, hey, you know, there's no such thing as a stress-free life, which I 100% agree with. But we can equip ourselves with the tools we need to navigate stress more effectively and, you know, cultivate a mindset that allows us to handle challenges with resilience and calmness, right? Like, can you go more into this?
Yeah, for sure. The more I read and the more I read about Black, I call it like Black stress stories, the more I understood that it is nearly impossible for us to be stress free. And so when I think about Black people and how we deal with stress, it really comes back down to access. Like
Yeah.
most of us were never taught to meditate. Most of us were taught like to be defensive. You
Yeah.
know, if somebody tells you you're wrong about something and it doesn't feel good, it's an argument instead of a moment of pause and reflection. We don't realize the value that exposure really has in somebody's life and like how that can change somebody's life. And so just being exposed through death in my situation to a plethora of stress management tools was like mind-blowing for me, because for years I went to hot yoga and I've cried in sessions and I moved my body and I sweated my way through some things and I like stretched myself and like made mental notes about like next week I want to be able to go this much further into the pose, and like not realizing like that was a form of therapy for me. Laying in shavasana at the end, that was a form of meditation for me. And not having that like in our communities, it's literally killing us. And we talk about using something like adaptogens. Adaptogens are non-psychedelic mushrooms, herbs and roots that when you consume them, they regulate your body's cortisol levels. So they help you manage your stress differently. And to be honest, when I discovered them through my grief, I thought it was like some skinny white woman bullshit, if we're going to be honest. I'm like, this shit's not going to work. This is a placebo, like whatever. But there were days, in the first year after my dad's passing that I'd be up for 72 hours, like didn't doze off, not a nap, nothing. Like I could not sleep. And so when I started taking adaptogens in that first maybe 2 to 4 weeks, I could sleep. And I started taking what I call the most basic bitch adaptogen, which is ashwagandha.
Let's go back a bit.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Deon Libra is an adaptogenic beauty brand. And honestly, Devin, it was the first time that I started to hear about adaptogens was through you and through the brand.
I love that.
How did you discover adaptogens?
A Google search. I literally Googled natural stress solutions because, of course, take a Xanax, do this. And like, while I'm not opposed to Western medicine, I just didn't want that to be my ministry. And so I Googled natural stress solutions and adaptogens came up. And I started reading like the first article I could find about them. Then I started reading the first medical journal. And then I went on Amazon and I ordered like every adaptogen book that I could find.
And can you take these orally, or were you just applying them topically?
So for me, the first batch of adaptogens I ordered were single ingredient. So meaning they are one adaptogen in powder form. And so ashwagandha was the first one. And then I started buying other ones like cordyceps and suma and chlorella and mixing things in my kitchen. And so that's kind of how, like with Deon Libra, we got to an elixir, because I was what my mom calls a kitchen chemist. I was buying single ingredient adaptogens to be consumed in powder form. So for me, I was mixing them in coffee or mixing them in tea and then consuming them by drinking them as a morning beverage as a part of my own morning ritual. Because at that time, like I didn't have a morning ritual. Like you get up, I was in grad school. So you get up, you go to class, you grab coffee on the way, you stop by Starbucks. But there was like no time and space for myself. And like now that I'm in my 30s, I realize how important that is in the morning, just like to have space for yourself. And like nobody's going to give you that time. You have to create it. And so making an adaptogenic beverage every morning is what really changed that for me.
You did mention ashwagandha. What are the leading adaptogens found in your products?
We put primary adaptogens in there. Primary adaptogens are the adaptogens that are most recognizable to people. So you may not know that ashwagandha is an adaptogen, but at this point, most people have seen the word ashwagandha. You may not know that lion's mane is an adaptogen, but at this point, most people have seen lion's mane, reishi, sea buckthorn, maca. So those are the ones that we really lead with in the ingestible. And then topically, we focus on things like amla to make your skin glow. We focus on reishi because it boosts collagen. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, if I just put big up on, I'm going to be de-stressed. It does not work that way. So let me clarify that. When used topically, adaptogens are there to make sure that your skin is protected from environmental stressors. And so an example of an environmental stressor is pollution. Like we might not be able to visibly see it every day, but if you step outside, at some point you're breathing polluted air, and that also comes in contact with your skin. And so while we think germs and like touching our face after not washing our hands is what always makes our skin flare up if you have eczema and psoriasis, or a breakout if you have acne, it's not always that. Sometimes it's just being in polluted air. And so when we were formulating Big Up, we wanted to take care of the inside and the outside. And so when we launched with Unbothered Adaptogenic Elixir to take care of your insides, and Big Up Body Glaze to take care of the outside. You know, earlier I mentioned that 90% of disease and illness is stress related, and that goes for your skin conditions as well. So if you dealt with the root cause of your skin conditions, which
Yes.
9 out of 10 is your stress, regardless if you were using Deon Libra or another brand, your skincare topically would be more effective. And I think that's one thing as Black people that we are not taught.
How does the education part of Deon Libra, which I think is brilliant and incredibly necessary, how does that contribute to addressing these disparities and making the wellness space more inclusive?
In my eyes, I think Deon Libra's goal is to sit in the middle of the medical journals I read and the stories and the research that's continuing to happen every day, and the customer / our community members, because they don't want to read a 30-page medical journal. Also, not all of that information is important to them. Being a center person, and when I say person, I mean the brand, to relay that information is really important. You know, for a while we ran an ad that talked about when Black people are sleeping, we're not truly at rest. And the amount of likes on that, and people who would DM us, maybe not publicly comment, and be like, I just didn't know, you know, was astounding to me, because this information is maybe not easily accessible, but it's readily accessible if you Google it. But if nobody is
Yes.
telling you, you need to research Black sleep patterns or the cost of Black sleep on our lives, then you don't know. And so whether I give you the information through Deon Libra or the facts as a form of education on our part, or I just pique your curiosity. And now you're like, oh shit, like I need to go look this up. I need to go do some research. Maybe this is why I'm not feeling well.
I also believe understanding the why, and why I love that you offer this component, this education content. I believe understanding the why makes you feel autonomous and empowered over your health, and even more committed.
I agree.
I want to talk about your wellness routines. What are the things, the routines that you do to stay grounded, to stay in your body, to stress less? I love that, to stress less. What are your tricks and your tools for your overall wellness?
I'm gonna be honest, a bitch is struggling right now. I used to be really good at self-care. But being a founder it's a lot. The entire company, everything you see that is Deon Libra, from packaging to formulation to social to interviews, press, all of that is just me and my wife. And so while I would love the luxury of an extended wellness routine day in and day out, I don't have that. And so I find smaller pockets of time to do smaller things. So for me, my wellness starts in the morning when I go downstairs and I make an adaptogenic latte. So that's the first point of touch with me and wellness throughout the day. Showers are, I don't know why, I feel like showers are sacred. I don't know if other people feel that way.
I feel that way.
Okay, good.
Feel that way.
I feel like showers are just a fresh start. Like, I don't know, maybe you get in the shower and it's like you get to literally wash your sins away and wash your anxiety away. So showers are really sacred to me. We put a sauna in our little wellness room downstairs. It's a small, like 2-person sauna I found on Amazon, but it was like the investment that I've ever made. This might sound silly to a lot of people, but singing and dancing, like I cannot sing shit, but I told myself at the end of last year, because complete burnout, heavy anxiety and depression, crying all the time, like I want more joy. And so, you know, anytime I send anybody product or I handwrite anybody a love letter, I write at the end, like, I wish you joy and ease. And that is because not only am I wishing that for other people, but I wish that for myself. And to me, joy and ease is turning on music and singing in the kitchen with my wife and dancing in the living room like, we're out partying and they played our favorite old R&B jam. And, I think that's important, to find simple things that bring you joy and ease. And I think in wellness, wellness is an industry, to be clear. We always look at it as a product, like what can I sell you? But I think wellness, especially for me, a big part of that is simplification. And it doesn't necessarily equate to a purchase or a product to be used at all times. I want to encourage people to look at their life and look at the things that bring them joy, because joy is wellness.
I love that.
Thank you.
And what are you looking forward to this year? What are you looking forward to in 2024?
A vacation. Ready to be butt naked on the beach, okay? Vacation, but brand wise, I can't talk about a lot of things right now, but I can say having more fun with what we release, exploring new categories. I think people look at wellness as like active and like physical and like, what can I take for better performance? But wellness is also prevalent in the bedroom. That is the biggest clue I will give you, and I will leave it there. I'm looking forward to just exploring, new categories and continuing to do the work. I think we need to change the narrative about what wellness looks like. So I hope that the work we're doing is doing that.
I'm so happy for you. I think your work is incredibly special and important. I love that you brought wellness and education and the sense of connection to a whole demographic of women. You're having these conversations that we don't normally have or just have access to. I mean, just going back to the beginning of our conversation and reflecting on the origin story, like, what if we all could look at our hardest moments we have to face and be able to connect them to the outcome, this beautiful business that you've birthed, these beautiful and thoughtful products that you have. For me, that's where my gratitude shows up. And you said this word, and dare I say it, joy, in my journey through my grief, that this really, really uncomfortable and difficult and painful thing forced me to just surrender my life's expectations. And it led me here to exactly where I am. And it led you to Deon Libra. So congratulations.
Oh,
It's such an
thank you.
honor.
That made me teary-eyed. I really do appreciate that. I think it's one thing, to be congratulated by people who just see you and see what you're building, but it's another thing to be congratulated and celebrated by people who have similar lived experiences. And, I think if anybody follows me on Instagram, I'm very loud about, my grief. But I think, grief doesn't always have to be so devastating. It is devastating. I think on my dad's anniversary was 3 days ago, and I said I would grieve you forever. And I think that's very true. But I think if you're willing, you could turn your grief into power. And I can stand firm on believing that that is what I've done. And I'm very proud of that. So thank you.